Is it true that women devour men with their pelvic floor? I'm going to tell you the answer in this steamy episode. So stay tuned. I am Candia Raquel, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that it's free from inhibition and full of self expression. And this episode is part of the Pelvic Floor Sensuality series as a propedeutic for my coming 4-week online bestseller Pelvic Floor Awakening course. So wait until the end of the episode because I'm gonna share with you the link to join the 5-day pelvic floor challenge that is 100% free. So, why is that women devour men with the pelvic floor? Well, the pelvic floor has a very interesting anatomy and very challenging as well because it's a literal floor that is at the base of your torso between your legs in the crotch. And wouldn't it be for the pelvic floor, all of our vital organs would fall straight to the floor. So the pelvic floor, literally as a floor, contains your vital organs inside, especially the bladder, the intestines, the uterus in women, the prostate in men. And the biggest challenge that it has is that it has to let things out with discernment. So you go to the bathroom every day, hopefully, no? And not only that, it has to also selectively, in the case of women, allow things in. And on top of that, the pelvic floor needs to support the natural movement of breathing that has an expansion on the inhale and drawing in contraction on the exhale. And specifically, the pelvic floor of women needs to allow things in, say the phallus of the beloved on intercourse. And the challenge is that through that same vaginal canal and the vagina, it has to allow out, in the case of reproduction, a whole baby. So it has to let things out and in, counter gravity, and besides holding all this stuff of organs inside. So a healthy feminine pelvic floor, especially the front part that mm, connects with the perineum and the vaginal opening and the vagina, has this quality of drawing in, of absorbing, almost like a vortex or like a whirlpool. And this is part of the function of reproduction and sex, to that the muscles draw in and up. And uh, I am very happy to share with you like this insight because I knew about what I'm talking about because I am a biologist and I study anatomy, and I have been teaching somatic movement since 1999 and providing uh, professional education for Pilates teachers in teacher trainings since 2009. So I knew about this, but it wasn't until recently that I really got it that, oh yeah, the feminine pelvic floor absorbs. And I'm gonna tell you two things. First, the story of how this realization came to being. And secondly, that I finally got it, the meaning of the song from Lalo Rodriguez that is Devórame otra vez, a anthem of salsa, and it's about this. He sings to her beloved, telling her that no one is like her in bed, and he was yearning to be sexually devoured by her. And I have been listening to that song as a Mexican since forever. But like, now I get what he's saying, and now I get why it's so popular. And yeah, I am aloof, and sometimes I don't realize things obvious like this, but maybe you are aloof or you want to improve your pelvic floor, and this is going to be helpful. So, I was talking with a gay friend that for a long time he was a B. He had girlfriends and everything, and he was saying that it always freaked him out having sex with women because he felt that they were pulling him inside of their body, like devouring him. Like he says, like, no, you I feel that you are gonna pull apart my phallus. Like, please stop pulling me in. Please stop sucking. And like their girlfriends tried their best to not pull him in. And then I was like, well, then what's the difference with gay sex with men, and instead of vaginal penetration, anal penetration, like, is it isn't it the same? And he said, no, of course not. This is a different sensation. And for example, the anal sphincter has actually two sphincters. It's a very strong sphincter, stronger than the vagina, because like we mentioned, the vagina has to allow things in and also out, in contrast with the anus, that its basic function is to prevent unwanted excretion, meaning to ensure fecal continence. I am talking in the most technical, medical, anatomical, polite terms here. So, thank you for your grace. And I hope that this gives you like a functional context of the complexity and the challenges that the pelvic floor has to cope with. So it's different. Uh, the sensation for men penetrating a man or a woman, because the sphincters are different, and the anal sphincter is, he reports, is just like very nice squeezy tightness, whereas the sensation with a woman is like this devouring, pulling in sensation. And he said it so, I felt that women were like piranhas, like these fishes, carnivore fishes from the Amazonian rivers. And it's very interesting, really, really, really interesting, because of that. Like, if we want to improve our pelvic floor, then we have a hint that the back part of the pelvic floor, say from the seat bones to the tailbone to the coccyx, is naturally stronger because of the anal sphincter. And actually, the muscle of the pelvic floor, the muscular group, is called etymologically in Latin, levator ani, meaning elevator of the anus. And the muscles in the front part, that are the most outer layer on top of the pelvic floor that make for the perineum, have a different function that is more geared towards sexuality, though it supports the cohesiveness of all the muscles in the face, in the base of the pelvis, but they have a different function and a different experience. And here we have like this devouring effect of the female pelvic floor. And now I want to play a little bit of the song from Lalo Rodriguez, Devórame otra vez, the one of the greatest anthems of salsa. And then I'm gonna read to you the lyrics translated to English so we can come to very interesting conclusions together. So there we go. Ready? Three, two, one. So he says, come, devour me again. Ven, devórame otra vez. And I'm going to read to you now the lyrics. It says, oh, come, devour me again. Come, devour me again. Come, punish me with your desires. Let me save my vigor for you. Oh, come, devour me again. Come, devour me again, because my mouth tastes of your body. My longing for you drives me to despair. Even in my dreams, I have believed I had you devouring me, and I have wet my white sheets crying for you. In my bed, no one is like you. I haven't been able to find the woman who can trace my body in every corner without leaving a single piece of skin untouched. And oh, yeah, very passionate song. Devour me gently and calmly until dawn. I want that sensuality. Come punish me with your deepest desires. Let my vigor be reserved for you. Come. I'm gonna play it one last time. Oh, yeah. Come devour me again. So let's go to the anatomical explanation on how this understanding is extremely helpful for us, especially women. There are many potential problems with the pelvic floor. Actually, more than half of women will experience at a certain moment in their life a certain level of leaking, of urinary incontinence because of this precise challenge, because our body has one orifice more than men, and it's challenged by gravity, and even more after natural childbirth or sudden gait weight and hormonal change, and even spinal injuries, uh, hip, knee replacements, etc. That's why I designed the Pelvic Floor Awakening course, because I have already gone through 3 episodes of leaking in my life, even though I haven't had any of the afour previously mentioned circumstances. And I was very well trained as a professional ballet dancer when I had my first leaking episode. So it's a complex topic, and it's still taboo in many ways. So if you struggle with leaking, an important thing to understand is that the pelvic floor lost somehow this capacity to devour. Like the pelvic floor is like given up, like an overstretched band somehow for whatever reason. And the good news is that as long as you're breathing and alive, the pelvic floor is somehow working, meaning it's possible to attune to what is functioning in the pelvic floor, to improve it all the way until fully recovering. And this image of devouring is very useful because uh, when you're struggling with the pelvic floor, you can spend days, weeks, even years without feeling the pelvic floor at all. Like it's like the Bermuda triangle that you don't feel anything. It's radio silence, only crickets there. And this widening, opening of the pelvic floor when you lost some level of bladder control has to do with what the pelvic floor, where the pelvic floor would naturally go by the end of the inhalation, which is a natural expansion. And the thing that we want is to support our body during the exhalation, where the pelvic floor naturally draws itself in and up within the pelvis. And it's not something scandalous, it's a minute movement. So the pelvic floor does move, but its range of movement is about 2 millimeters. And the understanding this like is key for success and even quick recovery. Once you understand that the pelvic floor moves only so much, 2 millimeters, and that its sensation is ever so nuanced, very gentle, then you can start looking for the sensation of the pelvic floor on the exhale, specifically by the end of the exhale. And yes, we work this in detail in pelvic floor awakening, the coming 4-week online course. But I want to share with you the basic practice that is called natural breathing because that's what it is. We begin to tend and to recover the pelvic floor by supporting the natural breathing pattern. We are not gonna impose clenching, contracting with repressive Kegels, not at all, because it can even be detrimental. On the contrary, we want to very gently and respectfully increase sensitivity, meaning focus our awareness in the nuanced sensations of the pelvic floor to stimulate innervation. And that means technically in anatomy to improve the connection of the brain through the nerves all the way to the muscles of the pelvic floor. So the brain, through sensation, can activate the pelvic floor when it should and in the way it should. So natural breathing has 3 steps. The first step is to focus on how you're breathing now and motivate the exhalation to be as long as it wants. If you allow your exhale to be as long as necessary, chances are that you will be supporting your nervous system to shift from survival to rest and digest mode, which is technically the parasympathetic dominance in the nervous system needed for the pelvic floor to engage. So just by allowing your exhale to be as long as it wants. You're supporting your nervous system to create the proper context for pelvic floor embodiment. Step number two is to focus on the shape of your breath. So it's very easy to notice the shape of your breath in the belly, perhaps in the ribs, because you can visually notice how your belly inflates and then it draws in. So the key here is to understand that exactly the same happens in the pelvic floor. You can even test yourself with the help of a handheld mirror and notice how the shape of your breath moves along the pelvic floor. Like your pelvic, the shape of your breath is reflected in the very gentle movement of your pelvic floor. Remember, we are talking about 2 millimeters here. And then notice if you can equate the sensation of inhalation as a joining with the pelvic floor. It doesn't matter if your pelvic floor is kind of loose or locked long or weak or whatever you want to call it. Just let it go on the inhale. So then it can be drawn back in and up within your body on the exhale, which is what we want, especially in the case of leaking. And then elaborate on the exhalation part of the shape of the breath and notice if little by little you can restore this image and this sensation and this potency of a devouring pelvic floor of drawing in of absorbing of an infinite vortex that can draw everything in, like a black hole, pun intended, be devouring, but just on the exhale. That is when the pelvic floor naturally does this. And then let it be on the inhale and then be devouring on the exhale. Very important not to force anything, not to try to make it happen, not to harness, not to nothing of that. We want to be very gentle and very respectful with the self, noticing that the pelvic floor is naturally doing this, yawning on the inhale and devouring on the exhale, and just cheering and motivating that natural movement. So you are not imposing a command. On the contrary, you are riding the wave of your breath, allowing the pelvic floor to do its thing. And step number three is self-consent. Notice if you feel like giving yourself permission to delight in the sensations of the pelvic floor. And if the answer is no, or you don't know, then you just keep like mentally doing what we were doing on the previous steps. And if the answer is yes, by all means, do welcome the pleasure that your pelvic floor may bring you, because the pelvic floor is a highly innervated area of the body, meaning it's an area that has a lot of nerve endings and sensitivity possibilities, because we have the sphincters there, we have the genitals there, and we have the whole floor anatomy of this core system in charge of breathing. So there's immense amounts of pleasure that can be sensed in the pelvic floor in a non-arousal way, meaning sensually, as part of your lifestyle when you are doing the dishes or whatever. And this area has put up with so much taboo that the little realm that we allow ourselves to enjoy the pelvic floor is during sexuality. And that's great. Please do continue. But there's more to the pelvic floor. There's this whole realm of non arousal pleasure, of sensuality, which also, if you're interested in the sexuals, delights, that's the best ground for mind blowing sexuality. But again, pleasure, sensual pleasure, is how we experience our vitality, our life force, our creativity. It's like, you see a cat stretching, and it's not like it's about to mate. It's like animals do enjoy sensuality as part of their daily living. And also, we do exactly the same when we are healthy in our body. We savor our food. We enjoy the little movements of I don't know, reaching for to open the door or whatever. When we are embodied, we are in a sensuous state. And the pelvic floor is a great gateway to access your center of power, this vibrancy, this vitality, this potency that is not necessarily something sexual or erotic. Can be, as we have heard in this song, but that's the cherry of the cake. So if you're ready to elaborate on the sensitivity of your pelvic floor through somatic movement, to improve your bladder control, to increase intimate pleasure with somatic movement tools like the one that you are exploring now, the natural breathing, I invite you to come to the 5-day pelvic floor challenge. It's free, and you'll get the first email within 2 minutes if you just go ahead now to my website, which is my name, candiaraquel.com/ pelvic floor challenge. Again, it's my name, www.candiaraquel.com/ pelvic floor awakening. I am posting the link as well below in the caption, in the description of this episode, and I hope to see you inside. Until next time, do remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame.